Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support my channel. At family dinner, they handed me a special gift. Inside the bag wasn't jewelry or a keepsake. It was a contract, a $100,000 loan meant to cover my sister's kids' private school tuition. Dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "This is your responsibility to pay." When I refused, my sister hurled wine into my face, and my mother screamed, "Get out." 10 minutes later, a man walked in. "My name's Alex," he said. "I'm 31, the middle child, the dependable one. I'm the guy who fixes the Wi-Fi, builds the shelves, arrives early, stays late, and writes the follow-up email no one else wants to send. In my family, that translates to background noise. I'm not the star, that's Sophie, my older sister. I'm not the comic relief, that's Nate, my younger brother. I'm the default option. If something needs to get done, it automatically becomes my job. I work as a financial analyst at a software company. I live alone in a modest apartment with a stubborn radiator and a kettle I actually like. Every year, I buy my own birthday cake because I prefer things simple and on time. I don't complain. I pay my bills. I help when it's reasonable. And when it's not, I usually help anyway because that's what family expects. Growing up, Sophie always had the spotlight and the world adjusted around her. When she aced a test, we celebrated with ice cream. When I aced a test, Mom said, "See, not so hard." When Sophie wanted a $200 dance costume, Dad called it an investment. When I asked for $40 for a debate trip, he called it unnecessary. I learned quickly, love came with a price tag, and somehow I was always footing the bill. I told myself I didn't mind, that I was the mature one, the steady one. I taught myself how to manage money, how to read leases, balance accounts, sync funds. And when people didn't pay me back, I just stopped lending what I couldn't afford to lose. Still, I showed up. Every birthday, every barbecue, every quick family thing. I brought salads, phone chargers, duct tape. I held babies, kept secrets, filled gaps. When Nate's tire blew, I drove 40 minutes to sit with him in the rain. When Sophie moved yet again, I lifted her boxes while Dad supervised. It became the rhythm of my life. They needed, I provided. They joked, I swallowed it. 2 Sundays ago was family dinner, capital letters, exclamation points, carrot emojis, courtesy of Mom's group chat. She texted at 9:10 a.m., "Dress nice tonight. Something special." I ignored the tone and just made a note to bring Dad's favorite pretzel buns and a decent bottle of wine. I ironed a shirt I usually save for work presentations. In the car, I even rehearsed my boundaries like lines of code. I can't do that right now. That's not in my budget. I'll think about it. Simple. Direct. Done. I reminded myself, you don't owe anyone a performance tonight. Just show up, eat, and leave. We sat down at 6:30 sharp. Mom's roast chicken. Dad already on his 3rd small pour. Sophie swept in 15 minutes late, dressed like she was walking a red carpet. She kissed the air near my face and smirked. "You look tired, Al." I smiled back. "I work." She rolled her eyes as if I'd made a bad joke. Dinner started with the usual chatter. Nate's new gym, Sophie's twins ballet recital, Dad's retirement that wasn't really retirement. But Mom kept sneaking glances at the sideboard, like she'd hidden a puppy in there. Finally, she clapped her hands. "We have a special surprise." Dad stood, pulled out a glossy gift bag with gold ribbon, and set it in front of me. "For you," he said. I blinked. "For me." Sophie smirked. Nate lifted his phone to film. "Go on," Mom urged. "This is going to help everyone. So helpful for everyone." My stomach tightened. I untied the ribbon and opened the box. Inside was stiff cream-colored paper, flagged with little blue tabs like a lawyer had sneezed on it. The title read, "Family Education Contribution Agreement." I didn't flip the page. I didn't even look up. Dad's voice softened, almost gentle. "We put it in writing this time, so there's no confusion." I shut the box and set it back down. Silence. The only sound was the hallway clock and Sophie's twins giggling on a video from her phone. I swallowed, and the room tilted slightly, the way it does before a storm. Mom leaned forward. "Go on. Read it." I didn't. My eyes stayed fixed on that word, family. And that's when the second trigger clicked. Because I had grown up paying in small installments, gas money that was never returned, group gifts that somehow always went on my card, overdue rent notices for Sophie that magically became my responsibility. Every time, I was the one covering the later. But later never came. Not when Nate cracked a tooth and I paid the dentist copay. Not when the oil tank ran low and I covered Dad's forgotten bill. Not when Sophie left her wallet and I slipped her $60 for an Uber. It wasn't the amounts, it was the pattern. The unspoken rule that my savings were family savings. That my silence meant agreement. At work, they call it scope creep. At home, it was just life, and it never stopped. Mom's eyes glazed over and Dad said, "We'll make it work." That was his word, we. Big, stretchy, undefined. I stayed silent in the first meeting. Mom spoke about legacy as if we were donating a new hospital wing. Dad kept repeating that public school was fine, except for, well, the things. He never explained what the things were. Numbers got tossed around like confetti. Grandparents might help. Maybe my aunt. Maybe friends. Sophie leaned in and said, "It takes a village." And her eyes locked on me when she said village. After the meeting, I texted Sophie privately. "What's your plan if they don't give enough aid?" Her reply, "We'll figure it out." I answered, "That's not a plan." She never wrote back. Months later, the plan had shifted. Make Alex the plan. It started small. Can I borrow $300 until Friday? The girls' camp deposit is due. Could you just put this on your card? We'll Venmo you next week. Can you call admissions? You speak their language better. When I asked for paperwork, Dad waved me off. Don't be transactional. When I wanted real numbers, Mom said, "You always make everything about math." And when I warned that debt has gravity, Sophie laughed. That's dramatic. It's just money. But it wasn't just money. It was about meaning. About who counted, who decided whose yes was expected and whose no was punished. So I tried boundaries. I can give X dollars once as a gift. I don't do loans to family. I can help budget, but I won't own your bills. Every time, Mom tilted her head like I was speaking Dutch. We're family, she'd say, as if that erased every argument. Dad sharpened it. You're doing well. Don't be selfish. Sophie softened it. You'd be such an amazing uncle if you helped with this. Then came the scenes. On Easter, Sophie cornered me by the dishwasher. If the girls go to this school, it changes their whole future, she said. I'm not arguing about the school, I told her. I'm arguing about who pays for it. You. She shot back, like the answer was obvious. At Dad's so-called retirement brunch, he pulled me into the garage and spoke like a fundraiser. There's a gap of about 100, he said, pretending it wasn't a guess. You're single. No mortgage. Think of it as paying forward. I have a life, I said. I have goals that don't look like plaques. He sighed. You've always been rigid. Rigid. That's what they call you when your no doesn't bend into yes. By summer, the text sped up. June, 8 came in. It's good, not great. Can you help with the deposit? July. Boarding students pay less, but that's not an option. August. They'll hold spots if we sign a commitment letter. A commitment letter. That's when I pictured the velvet box before I even saw it. The papers, the blue sticky flags, Dad's calm tone like a seatbelt demonstration. So I practiced. I typed my no in my phone's notes app and read it every morning for a week. I'm not paying $100,000. I love the girls. I hope you find a way. I won't be part of this. Still, my heart raced every time I read it. That's the thing about families like mine. You can know the numbers don't add up and still feel like you're the missing piece. You can see the balance sheet bleeding red and still, across mashed potatoes, when they call it love, you want to cave. Not because you can't afford the money, but because you can't afford the fallout. The story they'll spin about you if you refuse. 2 Sundays ago, I decided the story could change, or at least mine could, which is how I ended up with my hands on a velvet box at the dining table. The word family glowed on the page like a dare. Read it, Mom urged, her smile sharp as glass. Nate's camera app was still open. Sophie sipped wine like it was a show. I opened it. Not just a letter, an entire document. Header, footer, signature lines. Whereas the undersigned recognizes the benefits of elite education, it spelled out the numbers. $50,000 per child, per year. 2 years, minimum. Blue sticky flags marking where I should sign. On a note in Mom's looping script, "We are so proud of you." I inhaled, exhaled. "No," I said. Silence. Dad's face shifted into negotiation mode. "Son, this isn't a big ask. It's a commitment. You wanted clarity, here it is. $100,000. That's not small," I said, steady. "Not all at once," Sophie jumped in. "Monthly installments. The school is a nonprofit. It's basically a donation." "That's not how taxes work," I said. "You're missing the point." Mom cut in. "We're giving the girls a future. This is what families do. We step up. I've stepped up for years," I said. "I'm not signing this." Dad's voice dropped. "You have to pay this." "I don't have to do anything," I told him. Sophie laughed sharp. "Of course you do. You said you'd always be there for the girls." "I am there," I said. "Not as a bank." Mom's chair scraped. "How can you be so cold after everything we've done for you? What have you done for me?" The words surprised me. Gentle, not an attack, just finally standing. Mom blinked like I'd cursed her. Dad's jaw tightened. Nate lowered his phone, as if even he knew this part shouldn't be recorded. Sophie leaned in. "You don't even have a mortgage, Alex. No kids. This is nothing for you." I felt the old reflex stirring, the urge to justify, explain, show my budget line by line. Instead, I let it pass. I set the pen down and slid the box back across the table. "I'm not paying $100,000, I repeated, slower. "I love Lola and June. I hope you find another way, one that doesn't involve me." Sophie's face was the first to change. Surprise, then offense, then something raw and frightened. She lifted her glass and hurled the wine. It splashed my cheek, my shirt, the tablecloth, red spreading like a map. The twins weren't even there, but their sippy cups sat on the counter, bright plastic, glowing under kitchen light like fragile exhibits in a storm. "Get out," Mom screamed. Her voice sharp, furious, something I hadn't heard since I was 12 and spilled nail polish on her carpet. "Get out of this house right now." I stood. No chair scrape. I lifted it quietly. I dabbed my face and collar with a napkin, set it down on my plate, and slid my hands into my pockets to keep them from shaking. Dad jabbed a finger at the door. "You're a disgrace." Sophie's breathing came fast, as if she'd sprinted straight into the middle of a sentence. "How could you do this to my girls?" she demanded. A dozen replies pressed against my tongue. "I'm not doing anything to them. You made this decision, not me. Public school isn't a disaster." But none of those left my mouth. Instead, I said nothing. I walked toward the hallway for my coat. My shirt clung to my back, my heart hammered, but my mind stayed astonishingly quiet. That silence felt like a small miracle. I slid into my jacket, eyes falling on the framed photos along the wall. Sophie in her prom dress. Nate in his Little League uniform. Me at graduation, no, not me. That picture didn't exist. Instead, there was one of me holding a drill in front of the fixer-upper Dad bought back in 2014. The irony almost made me laugh. I opened the front door. 10 minutes. Mom's voice called sharply from the dining room, like she was setting a timer on my shame. "You have 10 minutes to be gone." I stepped outside. The evening air was soft, almost forgiving. I sat on the top step and texted my friend Mara. It happened. Her phone call came instantly. "You okay?" she asked. "I think so," I answered. "They turned it into a contract." She swore under her breath. "You knew they would. Come over, I'll make tea." I was about to stand when a car stopped at the curb. A man stepped out, blazer on, metal briefcase in hand. He walked quickly, the kind of stride of someone who bills by the hour and is already running behind. "Hi," he said, pausing on the path. "Are you Alex?" "I am." "I'm Ben," he said. "The notary." "Of course," I muttered. His eyes flicked to the open door, my wine-stained shirt, the glow of the dining room where shadows moved behind the curtain. His face shifted, like solving an equation. "They hired you?" I asked. "Your mother," he replied evenly, "said it was just a family document. I exhaled through my nose. Figures. He hesitated, then nodded toward the street. Want me to turn back? I shook my head. Go on in. I'm leaving. He studied me for another beat. People who witness signatures learn to read faces. Quietly, he said, for what it's worth, you don't have to sign anything you don't want to. I know, I told him and realized I really did. He stepped inside. I followed only to grab my keys from the console table. Mom's hands clapped when she saw him. Perfect timing, she said, brittle with relief. Sophie was blotting wine from the tablecloth, trembling. Dad raised his chin at me like a dare. Ben opened his case, the notary stamp gleaming like a trophy. I can't notarize under duress, he said firmly, professional and neutral. Consent has to be given. He does consent, Mom cut in too quickly. Ben turned to me. Do you? I don't, I said. My voice was steady, calm. Not today. Not ever. Sophie gripped the towel tighter. This is unfair, you're abusing us. Ben shut his briefcase. I'll send an invoice for my time. Then he turned to go. Mom's face crumpled like a falling curtain. Dad's was sharp, burning. You're throwing away your family, he accused. I slipped my keys into my pocket. No, I said. I'm throwing away a bill. Sophie let out a low, broken sound, rage, maybe grief. I looked at her and spoke the line I'd rehearsed for years. This isn't revenge. This is closure. Mom spat. What does that even mean? It means I'm done paying to stay related. I walked out. The screen door clicked shut behind me. Ben gave me a small nod, a quiet witness. I returned it and stepped into the evening. Wine drying on my collar like the outline of a country. I was finally leaving. The next morning, my phone lit up. 36 missed calls, 54 texts, and 1 email titled Urgent Family. From Mom, we are devastated. Call me now. From Dad, unbelievable. You'll regret this. From Sophie, the girls cried when they heard we might not go. How could you? From Nate, yo, last night was insane. You okay? I placed the phone face down, made tea, and opened my blinds. Sunlight stretched across my floor, like the world hadn't changed at all. I stood still, breathing. Then, finally, I did what I should have done years ago. I opened my banking app and canceled every autopay tied to them. No more Family Apple subscriptions. No more Sophie's Amazon backup card. No more just this month daycare payments. My screen chimed. You have successfully removed. At 9:02, Mom called again. I answered because the silence was louder than her voice. We raised you better than this, she said. You raised me to fix problems you created, I replied. I'm not doing it anymore. We didn't create anything. We're asking you to be generous. You're not asking. You hired a notary. That was for clarity, she insisted. Clarity? I echoed. Here's mine. I'm not paying for private school. I'm not signing loans. And I'm not talking about this again. Her tone turned frail. Think of Lola and June. I am, I said. But I'm also thinking of me. You don't even have kids, she snapped, as if that erased my right to draw lines. I have a life, I told her. And now I have boundaries. You've been brainwashed by your therapist and these boundaries. It's a cult. Fine, I said. Then call it my religion. She hung up. By 10:30, Dad emailed, we will consult an attorney. Attached was family agreement draft 2. I didn't open it. Instead, I forwarded it to my work email, filed neatly under non-billable. At noon, Sophie sent me a photo of the twins, backpacks matching, faces wide-eyed and pleading. How can you say no to this? She wrote. They're perfect, I typed, but I won't be paying. Her reply was a long paragraph about sacrifice and love, ending with, you owe us after everything we did when you were depressed in 2019. It took me a beat to remember Mom dropping off soup once, Dad telling me to get more sun. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, I sent, weaponizing my mental health is a good way to get blocked. Then I blocked her. That night Nate called. Man, they're on the warpath, he said. Dad claims you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. My nose is fine, I answered. How are you? He sighed. Mixed. I get it, though. The number's insane. But it's the girls, you know? If I say yes just so you don't think I don't love them, I said gently, I'll be paying with that fear forever. He went quiet. Yeah, you're right. A pause. Mom wanted me to get you to apologize. For what? For not being a wallet, I guess. We sat in silence together. Then he told me Mom had posted in the family Facebook group something about prayers, sacrifices, and people forgetting where they came from. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because laughter let me breathe. The days that followed, I built a new rhythm. I left my phone on Do Not Disturb until 9 a.m. walked the park loop every evening. Bought a jump rope and a new pillow. Added an extra therapy session, mostly to talk about money. We talked about duty versus debt, about how being needed isn't the same as being loved, about how no sounds like betrayal to people who always thrived on my yes. Day 3, Dad left a voicemail. We'll compromise. You pay the first year, we'll figure out the second. But I knew figure out meant repeating this fight next year. I didn't respond. Day 5, Mom sent shame letters. You'll regret this when we're gone. We won't forget. Both a threat and a promise. I archived it. Day 7, Sophie texted from a new number. I'm sorry I threw wine, but if you love the girls, you'd try. I set the phone face down. Apologies with hooks aren't apologies. The only message that stayed with me came from Aunt Mary, who never takes sides. Proud of you. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. You hold the keys. Don't give them up. I printed it and taped it inside my pantry, right above my budget binder. Maybe it makes me sound like someone who alphabetizes spices, because I do. Spreadsheets don't guilt trip you. Work grew lighter. My back stopped aching. Silence became something I wanted, not something I endured. On the second Sunday, I didn't go to family dinner. At 6:31 p.m., my phone buzzed. Where are you? I ignored it. At 6:45, my buzzer rang. I let it go unanswered. A paper slipped under my door. Family Education Contribution Agreement, revised. My name still printed under contributor. Now with an added clause. Signing acknowledges moral obligation regardless of legal enforceability. I laughed out loud, alone in my kitchen. Set the paper on the counter. Picked up a pen. Wrote across it in steady letters, no. I folded it, slipped it into an envelope, and mailed it back with a sticky note. Return to sender. It felt like setting down a weight I'd carried since I was 15. The sound was small, but it changed the way my shoulders sat. That night, I slept through till morning. No dreams, no clocks, just rest.